So most people probably wouldn't believe me that tofu makes a better steak and cheese sandwich than pretty much any other vegan steak meat out there. It's real good. But if you follow this process, you're gonna get insanely steak-like tofu strips that don't resemble tofu at all. They resemble steak. This make a pretty incredible steak and cheese.
Okay, so first we're gonna start off with some extra firm protein. Now, I'm saying that because I always get these protein comments, and tofu is pretty much mostly protein. So we're gonna start by draining our tofu. We're not gonna press it or anything like that. All we're gonna do is just slice it in half long ways. And then we need some yeast extract. Now, normally I use Marmite, but I was told that I should try Vegemite. So I picked up some Vegemite, and I'll tell you, I actually like it. It's not nearly as sticky. So let's get a pot of salted water ready to be boiled over a high heat, and we're gonna toss in about a tablespoon of our yeast extract. Once we get that to a boil, let's just toss in our tofu and let it boil for about 20 minutes. Now, this is gonna use like a reverse osmosis, and it's going to draw most of the moisture out of the tofu while replacing a lot of that moisture with some of this flavor. So this is going to be kind of like salty and meaty. That yeast extract really has like a nice meaty taste to it. So this is a firm tofu, but it's still pretty soft, and we want to get it very firm. We want to get it like steak firm. So to do that, we're just going to get a parchment paper lined baking sheet, put a little bit of oil on it, and then start slicing our tofu incredibly thin. And we're just going to line it up, overlapping down that baking sheet. Now there's a few ways to do this, but if your oven has a convection setting, that's going to speed this along. So preheat your oven for 350 degrees. If you don't have the convection setting, just go ahead and use it. You're probably just going to add a few more minutes to it. So now we're going to add a little bit more protein using liquid aminos. So liquid aminos has a very specific taste. It's like an amino acid, and that amino acid really brings up the steaky flavors. So we're just going to toss a little bit of that on, along with some olive oil, black pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, and paprika. Smoked paprika makes it a little bit better. Now at this point, we're just going to toss it in the oven for about 30 minutes. Now you're really going to want to pay attention to it. Everybody's oven's a little bit different. You want this to kind of like dry out.
Hey gang, real quick, let me tell you a little bit about today's sponsor, Noom. Noom has helped me learn a lot about the decisions I make when it comes to food. And it's not a diet, it's not a fad. It's a psychological-based curriculum that leads to real, lasting change. Now, I wanted to try Noom for a while because I loved the idea behind it. I loved the science. It wasn't like a one-size-fits-all plan or like a restrictive diet. With Noom, you spend a little time every day reading lessons, articles, and tricks that will help you on your health journey. Like an article that was explaining how we were always told that we had to clean our plates as kids. I was still doing that as an adult, no matter how full I was. It seems so small, but being aware of that has made such a huge difference in the way that I eat. Now, I've lost around 18 pounds on Noom, but really the big win is how much better I feel about the food choices that I'm making. And with today's quick motivational tip of letting go of the small lapses, which is what I've been doing, and just getting back into it, which is what I'm doing now, it just feels so motivational and inspiring. And Noom also has a food and exercise tracker, which is pretty great to use daily. You get into the habit of it. Those trackers make a huge difference. So gang, click the link in the description below or head over to noom.com/SauceStache to take your free Noom evaluation. That's NOOM.com/SauceStache. It's quick, easy, and is gonna help you create your custom plan, which you're going to love. Noom, thank you so much for sponsoring today's video, but really thank you for helping me become a healthier me. It's made such a difference.
Now look at this tofu steak. I mean, it is looking incredible. Now it's almost done. You want this to be pretty crispy, so just like feel it, see what it feels like. We're gonna prep everything else that we need for our steak and cheese sandwich: onions, peppers, mushrooms. All we're gonna do is just toss those in a pan with a little bit of olive oil. You could do a little bit of pepper, maybe a little bit of salt. You don't wanna add too much salt. Our tofu is gonna be pretty salty. And then cook that down. Now we need to prep our cheese. For our cheese, we're just gonna be using chow as the base. I love the flavor of this as a base. It has a really nice cheesy flavor, really rich. So we just need some water in the bottom of the pan steaming with the chow, a little bit of nutritional yeast, and then I'm gonna be using sodium citrate as a stabilizer. The sodium citrate's gonna keep this as a cheesy sauce. So at this point, our tofu steak is done. Let's pull it out of the oven, and I'm just gonna start chopping it up and breaking up those pieces. They kind of started to stick together, and you can see they're actually kind of crunchy at this point. I know it doesn't seem like steak, but it will. So once you have them all pulled apart, toss them on top of your peppers and onions, toss a little bit of olive oil on top of that, and then about a quarter cup of water. You just want to fill the pan, covering just enough of the bottom of the pan, completely covering the bottom of the pan. Toss a lid on top and allow this all to kind of like steam together, just maybe like 4 or 5 minutes. It won't take that long. You want that water to get pulled out. Get your bun ready. It's just a regular hoagie bun with some vegan mayo, loaded up with the vegan mayo. I definitely think that's a really good part of this. And then you could see, I mean, look at this. It is super steaky. It's incredibly steaky. It'll blow your mind. You have to try it. You really have to try this. I mean, look at this sandwich. Toss on the cheese. It is good. It is done. We got our Philly cheesesteak.
Okay, I have made a ton of different steak and cheese sandwiches in my life and on this show. And I'll say like this is one of my go-tos that I never really shared because it's so kind of simple. A little time consuming for sure, but super simple. And if you've never had this like dehydrated, steaked, I'm gonna call it staked tofu, seriously missing out. This is by far the closest to a real steak and cheese that I've ever had. And it's loaded with protein for all you protein people. I honestly don't know how anybody out there couldn't love this. For the steak people, I mean, I know you're not gonna believe me, but just make it. These are easy to find ingredients at the grocery store. Just make it. You don't believe me? Make it. It's that good. Wild when you follow that process, what you end up coming out with.